Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Rush Fans Roundtable number 174, where we are going to continue on some of the deeper tracks on the album Presto. I got an awesome panel here today: Alex, Steve, Tal, and Paul, and me. I'm Jim. I guess I'm part of the panel. But these are the awesome guys. These are the awesome ones. All right, so we're just going to kind of get right into it with Red Tide. All right, so Red Tide is it's funny because these two songs that we're talking about here have been like some of my favorites from this album. And I just gotta say that I love how Red Tide just opens up with a piano. Very different than the whole synthy stuff that they've done on the previous couple of albums. The piano is really present on this album. Then the synths are taking much more of a backseat, in my opinion, on this guy. So this is just a great opener for me. Anybody have anything on the opening, or?
Well, I think the instrumentation in the beginning is kind of interesting in that they have four measures of that piano. So it's a two measure phrase played twice. That continues. Leifson comes in with basically an F sus2 and just a more of an open, brighter G power chord, so that, hey, that's a real phone. Unfortunately, that's behind me, so I can't actually mute while I'm talking. So you guys get to endure the real telephone. So
a real phone.
Yeah, all right, the real genuine phone app. But anyway, it's the sort of thing. Hey, there we go. Basically, all of Getty's chords have an ambiguous vibe about them on the piano. So between what both of them are playing has a nice little, not really a major or minor tonality. It's just a broad sense of suspension.
Yeah, that's
a lot of the songs built in 16 measures, because you figure four measure phrase,
that's a
12 measure typical phrase.
Right. Those are typical lengths that, most people, like musicians and as listeners, I think we just sort of feel those phrases now.
Definitely.
That's what we're kind of used to. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's kind of hit some lyrics business on this. All right. So the first set of lyrics here: nature has some new plague to run in our streets. History, some new wrinkle we are doomed to repeat. Fugitives at the bedroom door. Lovers pause to find an open store. Rain is burning on the forest floor, and the red tide kisses the shore. Alex, you want to give us a start with that guy?
Well, coming straight out at the end of the 80s, I mean, that was very just like straight, right in the face, AIDS epidemic. You had 8 years of the AIDS epidemic being in the news at that point. I mean, it's some other bands like Dokken did that as a lead single on the Back for the Attack album. The song Kiss of Death was about that. So, and you figure guys in rock, it was on their minds,
Yeah.
The guys in Rush were family guys, but still, everyone has friends, everyone lives in the world. It's interesting that, I mean, as Neil has said, he's, as an environmental individual, someone who likes to be out in the world, he wrote this also with a nod towards that too. So he begins straight out with the new plague and, fugitives at the bedroom door. I mean, that's obvious, but then immediately ends that stanza with, the aspect of acid rain, which was certainly another thing in the second half of the 80s that, I remember watching the World News with Peter Jennings, and Canada was none too happy with the U.S. and pollution.
Oh, yeah.
So I always remembered acid rain being referenced, by 87 or so. So as, Canadians close to the U.S. border, they were aware.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And this is very much a song for the sign of the times, I think, as well. Yeah. Awesome. All right, then we get to "This is not a false alarm. This is not a test." We'll get back to that later. "Stay out of the sun. It only burns my skin. Sky full of poison, and the atmosphere's too thin. Bless the sun, rain no more. River running like an open sore. Black wind falling to the ocean floor, and the red tide washes ashore." Tal, can you start us off here?
Yes, first of all, can I just say how this song is totally the sequel to Second Nature? which is another Rush song that I'm a huge fan of. And it almost feels like it takes place before Second Nature. Like this is the warning, and Second Nature is kind of more like, okay, come on, like I'm ready to make a deal. Like, come on, today's different, tomorrow's the same. Anyway, this is about Red Tide. So, with this lyrical stanza right here, the professor, the wordsmith himself, just paints excellent imagery as per usual. It's stare the sun only burns my skin. Unless if you don't put sunscreen on, it's gonna happen. But this seems to be more like he's indicating kind of global warming, where the sun might always be dangerous, no matter like how much protection you have. And sky full of poison, the atmosphere is too thin. Kind of saying that if we don't do something about this, then like the world might just crumble. The atmosphere is too thin. And it's a very ugly image, especially when I love the rhyming also. Also the rhyming references to the previous verse, lovers pause to find an open store, and then he says river running like an open sore. I just think that's genius. I can picture in my head, I can picture the rivers going wild and black wind falling to the ocean floor, maybe like he's alluding to a tsunami occurring or something when the ocean's getting so windy, and then the red tide washes ashore. So it's great similes, great rhyming, and great imagery. Applies to all five senses. When I hear Getty saying it only burns my skin, I feel it as I'm listening to it. And instrumentation wise, nothing's too different compared to the first verse, but it's pretty calm overall. It gets a little more hyper after in the next set of lyrics that with the it's not a false alarm, it's not a test. But
awesome. Does anybody want to add anything to what Tom?
I'm going to chime in. I know I was all over the beginning of this, and
go for it, man.
I feel bad jumping in on this, but certainly for at least some of us here would know, of course, the atmosphere is too thin, being a direct reference to the ozone layer. That was a huge issue in the 80s. I mean, think about the amount of Aquanet that was used alone. I mean, come on. But supposedly it did, heal itself. It's because it's, that was an issue at that time frame as far as, we're thinning the atmosphere with hydrofluorocarbons. And then we stopped using as much hydrofluorocarbons. We got into the grunge era and hair was flatter. Grunge saved the environment.
Yes.
Am I the only one here that wasn't alive in the 80s?
Yes.
Also, red tide causes atmospheric. They were just starting to learn that around that time. That NOAA's research on red tide, which is actually they prefer the term NOAA prefers the term harmful algal blooms. Algal blooms being bloom with the color, but large masses of algae, and the harmful part is from our humanity's waste products going in and interacting with them. It causes in this case the red tide because of the auburn hue, but in the meantime it also releases into the air around the beaches. So now you're also talking between the environmental damage. I know in 2022 in Sarasota alone, that's where I found up NOAA's website, they pulled 7 tons of dead fish off of Sarasota's beaches. So it also affects their economy. But Neil being the environmental person he is, it affects the air. People were having it was triggering people's asthma just being near the beach. So the air is also affected that way.
True. You tended more to focus on the environment in this tune rather than other aspects. But they all affect each other, right? It's an entire ecosystem, this world of ours. All right. Well, the next one said we get back to this. This is not a false alarm. This is not a test. Nowhere we can fly away, nowhere we can rest. The party is disrupted by an uninvited guest. And it's interesting because if you look at the lyric sheet, this is not a false alarm, this is not a test. That's all in capitals. That's in capital letters, right? It's a call to arms, right? This is like something urgent. This is what he's saying. Hey, come on, pay attention. This is not a drill. It's real. And you guys already mentioned, a lot of stuff with the ecological and the health concerns in the 80s. And Alex, you mentioned, the AIDS epidemic was on everybody's mind because it was something that was brand new. I even remember people, encouraging people to carpool, like when you're driving to work, save the ozone layer, carpool. I remember all of that. All of this stuff was highlighted on the evening news back with all these people who don't have evening news now. We had the evening news. And, for sure, this kind of feels like, hey, we really need to wake up and do something. Anybody else want to add to that?
Well, I think the uninvited guest, Jim, is us. It's humans.
Yeah.
We're the uninvited guests here, right?
Yeah, we are. And it's really interesting because if you look at different species, humans seem to be the worst with harmonizing with their environment compared to other species, how they will harmonize with their environment for some reason. But yeah, that's a good point, Steve.
Terrible.
I kind of always thought that the uninvited guest is probably, all of this junk that is happening, but I think man is the one to we should take the man should man up.
Yes,
the human should
exactly.
man up. Quote unquote, man up on that, Yeah, for sure. All right, then we continue. Deadline approaches for the weary land. It used to be something, but we let it run down in our hands. Too late to debate, too bad to ignore. Quiet rebellion leads to open war. Bring a sea change to the factory floor as the red tide covers the shore. Steve, what do you think?
I think this is the most important part of the song, and you can feel it in the change of the music. The first two verses are very subdued at the open, but here, after he says the party is disrupted by an uninvited guest, who I believe is us, then it really kicks in, and the guitar is driving home the point that this is a warning. Deadline approaches for the weary land. It used to be something, but we let it run down in our hands. We're letting this get away from us. And if we don't do something now about whatever it is, and today it's climate change, right? Maybe 30 years ago when Neil wrote this, he meant it to be something else. But the great thing about Neil's lyrics is that you can take a lyric that Neil wrote 30 years ago and apply it to what's happening today, and it fits perfectly.
Yes.
And to me, this verse is a warning that humans, we better get our act together and fix stuff before it gets out of hand.
Yes, I agree. And you're right about the music is different here too, right? There's more excitement in each of the guys' parts there. It really does kind of bring it up a notch. That's a great observation. Excellent. Anybody else on that one? No? All right. Well, we go to a very short piano melody, which is the same melody as the intro, which I thought it was really cool to put that in there. And then we get to, I guess, almost the last verse. I don't know what to call these sometimes. Now's the time to turn the tide. Now's the time to fight. Let us not go gently to the endless winter night. Now's the time to make the time while hope is still in sight. Let us not go gently to the endless winter night. Let us not go gently to the endless winter night. Paul, I think you have something interesting to say about this one.
Inspired by Dylan Thomas, the Welsh poets. Thomas was very melancholy, but they called his form unclassifiable. It can't be explicated. So immediately you can tell he's the kind of poet that Neil would be drawn to. He specialized in words and imagery. So you're talking Neil's bread and butter. Yeah. So as far as the poem, Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night, which inspires these stanzas, the schematic of that poem, I'd advise anybody who doesn't know the poem to pause this during watching it, read that poem, it's short, and then come back. But the whole idea of do not go gentle in that good night, rage, rage against the dying of the light. Back to the theme of perception that Presto is all about. Neil's writing form for this song was, here's the problem, now here's the solution. The solution is open your eyes, perceive this problem, do not look away from it. So I think as far as the tie into The Hill I'll Die On, perception with Presto, it's as simple as open your eyes. This is the problem. Do something. Don't sit there and wait for it to run down through your hands. But the interesting thing I found was it's not an exact copy. Another reason I love Neil's writing, but the lyrics do go on and repeat the same things, but the order they're repeated in, this is not a false alarm. This is not a test. Know where we can fly away. Know where we can rest. Let us not go gently to the endless winter night. Outside of the nuclear winter wink for the 80s, it's also a case of it fits. It's very similar to the rhyme and refrain schematic that Dylan Thomas uses in the poem. It's line 1, line 2, refrain 1, line 1, line 2, refrain 2. He actually matches that. It's inspired by it. It's not an exact copy. But so if you put them side by side, you can tell he drew inspiration from it. So I just found that to be, I didn't realize that until this week studying up for this, and mind blown. So again, another reason to love Neil's writing. Going back to what Steve said about it being timeless. Dylan Thomas died in 53. I don't remember what year this was published, but here we are 30 years or however many years later, from 89 to now, and it's still very relevant.
Yeah, so. For sure. Yeah, that's great. Anybody else have anything to say on this one?
Like the instrumentation on this is interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, Tal.
I just want to say a very quick thing. It's funny how he says, "Let us not go gently to the endless winter night," as Canadian junkie like myself feels like it's an endless winter night anyway. So.
Well, there's that too. Yeah.
You can continue, Alex.
Oh, all right. No, I was just gonna make reference. I look at this as the bridge section. And the first 4 measures are essentially the same progression as the beginning of the song. And then by the time they hit the Dylan Thomas reference, they go into D minor, F, C, and G minor. So they go to a very blatantly minor tonality that wasn't used in the rest of the song. And then when they go back into Now's the Time to Turn the Tide, they go back to A minor G, which they used earlier in the song. So it's just, to me, I also thought it was interesting that it's sort of, well, here's our progression. Now we're changing it to bring in the Dylan Thomas. Now we're changing it again. We already used it, but then we're going to go back to the D minor with the Dylan Thomas. So they were just the progression, and that's where I would call this a bridge, because it's such a different take leading into the guitar solo. But
that melancholic tone fits the minor keys perfectly.
It does, it does, and to me, what a great guitar solo this is. It is quite short, but there is a lot of great textures in it. It's just perfect for the song. And the guitar solo feels a little bit anxious, kind of like matching the
tension.
Message.
Tension, exactly.
Agreed. Of the song, which is
the urgency.
Which is fantastic. Yeah, for sure, the urgency there. It sort of matches that, in my opinion.
It's another one of those. It's one of those Lifeson single string solos, for the most part. Yeah, that's something he said 21 years ago on their website as an FAQ that he said, most of his solos are one string. And at that point when I read it, I thought, because you look at certain solos, but this is one that he has a couple of licks that are more standard, but a lot of it, especially for the speed and the frenetic nature of it, he just goes to town on one string for the most part.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
I'm willing to bet that was an improvised solo. I think they're just like, okay, I'm going to try something kind of messy and wild. And he just with that and that's good.
One take, most likely.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
probably.
To be honest, I'm not too much of a fan. It's the one part of the song that it's probably my least favorite part of the song. I prefer solos that are a little more structured, a little more beautiful. Maybe have some long bends. This one just kind of notes for me. So I'm bringing some negativity to this roundtable.
Maybe it's dissonant. Maybe it's dissonant on purpose to get his.
Probably is.
Across.
Yeah, probably so.
It's supposed to be disruptive.
As a solo, I'm a huge fan of. So hopefully, I'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah. We're on Red Tide.
Do you guys feel like this song would have fit well on Grace Under Pressure?
Grace? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's similar to Distant Early Warning in theme, is what I was getting at.
Yes. Yeah.
In fact, actually, the Now is the Time to Turn the Tide part right there, like that driving rhythm with the A minor chord, it kind of sounds like the start of After Image. I think it might even be same
insistence too.
And in the same kind of strumming. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
A minor, eighth notes, downstrokes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tempos. The song's also at about 140 something So
Yeah. Well, and then from the rest of the lyric perspective, after the guitar solo, they go back to "This is not a false alarm, this is not a test," and then eventually start repeating, "Let us not go gently to the endless winter night," until they get to "And the red tide kisses the shore," which Geddy just keeps repeating until the end of the song there. So I think this is just a fantastic song that's got a really cool message that's was very, very relevant when it was written, and I think there's a lot of relevance to it still, for sure. Anybody want to say anything more about the red tide?
Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's the case, then I think we will move on to Hand Over Fist. All right, so Hand Over Fist, another deep cut, another fantastic song that, and I'll get to what my favorite lyric is when we talk about this here. But now on this one, instead of like opening with the piano like the previous one did, it opens up with, and I don't know if it's an acoustic guitar or if it's just a acoustic patch, but it certainly sounds like an acoustic guitar to me.
It was the Hentor. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
it was the Hentor.
Yeah, and I just think it's great that the way it starts, and yeah, I can't say anything. I can't say enough good stuff about this too. I like it a lot, a whole lot. All right, well, let's kind of get into some lyric things, and instead of calling on you guys, maybe we'll do something a little bit different. Just chime in. How about let's try that? All right, so at the beginning, hand over fist, paper around the stone, scissors cut the paper to the bone. Hand over fist, paper around the stone. The scissors cut the paper, and the rock must stand alone. Good little opening lyrical piece there. What do you
Right off the bat there, opening with the chorus, which is unusual. But Rush, of course, always does the unusual.
Yeah.
Especially on this record. I mean, this record is filled with things like you said, Jim, the opening of Red Tide with the piano, the opening of this song with the guitar. It's unusual for any song, and it's unusual for a Rush song, and that's what makes them so great.
Yeah, for sure. I think so too. Oh yeah. All right.
It's a reference to rock, paper, scissors. It's pretty much an exact reference to rock, paper, scissors. If anyone kind of knows exactly what Neil was intending here, could you you guys maybe want to elaborate on that, because it's always kind of confused me.
Okay, the traditional game of rock, paper, scissors with rock, scissors, paper. Rock, paper crushes rock. Rock. It's all about conflict. So what's going to beat what? What weapon is going to beat the other one, as opposed to harmony, where we agree. If you think back to Open Secrets, where it's all about communication and the breakdown of it, much with like a Second Nature and Red Tide, this sort of ties into Open Secrets, where there's a communication breakdown, which I don't want to get ahead of myself, but towards second stanza, there's be more about it. But rock, paper, scissors, those are the three rules, sort of conflict.
Yeah. There's
I never thought about that one.
And once we get further into the lyrics, I'll mention something here. But let's kind of go down there so we can answer your question too, Tal, because I think you're bringing up a great question. I could disappear into the crowd, but not if I keep my head in the clouds. I could walk away so proud. It's easy enough if you don't laugh too loud. I thought I was okay alone, wait for the postman and the telephone, lost in a world of my own. I thought I could run alone. I thought I could run through the night alone. Really interesting. It's kind of seems to me almost like, the person that he's writing about is thinking, I could do this by myself. I don't need anybody else. And they kind of realize, well, I thought I could. Maybe that's not the case. That's kind of what I get out of that.
And so much of his writing was based in independence and reliance on self, as opposed to, for example, only turning things over to some higher power or some idol or some whatever, self-reliance and self-sufficiency. But like you said, that those last two lines, it's like, but maybe, and that's where that's left for now, which is where I'll stop for now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You guys jump in if you have anything.
I mostly have just the stuff that my thoughts wind up going more to the instrumentation because it's just what I do. I mean, literally what I do for a living. And just the fact that, the beginning is that funky, clean guitar, which I feel like it foreshadows. Trying to remember the Rockline interview. If there was a reference with one of the instrumentals, and I'm trying to think if it was on Roll the Bones or Counterparts, where the instrumentals were they made the reference of coming up with a song that was as funky as three white Canadians could make it. And in the idea here is this song was originally meant to be an instrumental, but Neil came up with lyrics. So it's sort of, we have this, Geddy and Alex are thinking, okay, we got this instrumental. Neil, wait, I got lyrics. And because then you think of the follow-up to that for the next two albums, the instrumentals begin with kind of a funky or white Canadian funk.
Where's my thing?
Yeah, exactly. And leave that thing alone.
And leave that thing alone too. Yeah.
So it kind of is a trilogy there on the next three albums, or this and the next two albums, I should say. Yeah. And then when you look at the instrumentation of it, it begins with that funkiness. And then they go in, they got that bit of a riff going, more of a A minor pentatonic riff. And by the time they get into some chords, which the tab book, which I decided to consult, that I bought, back then, as transcribed by the late Jesse Gress, he labeled "I Thought I Was Okay Alone" that section as the pre-chorus, which I thought interesting, because it winds up leading into Hand Over Fist, but that's probably also because the instrumentation changes yet again to a sustained, C sus, D sus, E major, which usually is C, D, E minor. So it's just an interesting, the way they put the sections together like that. After the fact, you kind of look back and say, oh, I can see how this really was the instrumental they were reaching for after all those years. Last one was YYZ. So it's kind of like, oh, hey, it's almost 10 years later. We want another instrumental and we're going to funk it up. And, hey, no, next album. Let's roll the bones on that one. Yeah. So just
very interesting. I never thought about that. I never thought about how that guitar alternate strumming right there is like the exact same way they start the next two instrumentals. Interesting. My perspective for sure.
And the amazing thing is, even though this was meant to be an instrumental, the music fits perfectly with the lyrics on this song. It builds as the conflict is introduced. You read the first verses, Jim, where the person in the song is alone, but later on in the song, it becomes about a relationship. And as that relationship is getting more tense and more conflict is introduced, you can hear it in the music. And Tal, my interpretation of the Hand Over Fist is the fist represents conflict, anger, resentment. And then the hand over the fist is accepting and love. And what Neil's doing is contrasting the child's game to resolve conflict with resolving conflict in a relationship, which is brilliant.
That's good. And now the hand over hand line kind of makes more sense. Like hand over hand, I guess, kind of represents unity, like kind of like agreement kind of thing. Doesn't seem so much, but like it's just that's what's strong, right? That's what you need, that connection. You need the hand over hand.
Right. Yeah. And even the next lyrics, they go through the chorus and they add what you just mentioned, pal. Hand over hand doesn't seem so much. Hand over hand is the strength of the common touch. Oh yeah. Yep. So now we're really getting into the meaning of the song. All right.
Awesome.
Hey, no, it's great. All right. So you talk as we walk along. You never imagined I could be so wrong. Humming your favorite song. I've hated that song for so long. How can we ever agree? Like the rest of the world, we grow farther apart. I swear you don't listen to me. Holding my hand to my heart, holding my fist to my racing heart.
My favorite part of the song.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We haven't got to mine yet, but that's awesome.
Yeah, mine bounces around between a later line, but just as a whole, this part, because now we've introduced the idea of, okay, I thought it was okay alone, so maybe, so now it's, okay, you talk as we walk along. And what starts as a small and intimate exchange gets overblown into this conflict, much we talked about on Presto, where it was small engagement or intimate setting and then large expansive. It does that big dynamic feel again. You know, something small, humming your favorite song. It's an annoyance. You know, I've hated that song for so long. Suddenly, with Alex hitting that note, and we're off to the races. How could we ever agree? Like the rest of the world, we grow farther apart. So now it's this big global, starts off small, huge irritation, conflict. So again, bringing it back to perception. Can't you see it my way? If you could see this my way, you'd see there's conflict there, as opposed to seeing how we each see it, which will come up later. But there's perception. So there's one to throw. Goes from small to big, and it's a conflict of perceptions.
Yep.
Hey, Paul, if this was you and me talking as we walking, you'd be humming the Necromancer.
That's a fantastic song, that's a fantastic album, by the way.
We'll stick it out plug. Follow us on Rush Fans.
I'm not going to spoil my opinions yet. It was just a joke. I will reveal everything next week.
Okay.
Nice.
A little Carissa Steel. All right. So
the Ring of Power here.
Yeah. All right. So then we go to the guitar solo, and Alex, I'm curious to hear your views on this solo too. But I think this is yet another fantastic. I think all of Alex Lifeson's solos are excellent.
Yeah, that's just it. Is that he always does a great job of fitting the song. I mean, it's another short solo. 8 measures basically. I mean, I think he trying to actually. Hey, I got it at my knee here. See what the paper says. Basically, just simply put that. Just rather short solo. I mean, it's interesting because he's got the bar working. Tremolo bar, vibrato arm for anyone who doesn't know. Goes for some high notes, which, not to jump ahead, but he has a much longer outro solo at the end of the song. Because as I say, this solo in the midst of all the lyrics is basically it. As I say, just 8 measures. It's a signature Lifeson solo. As I say, it fits. It's not necessarily one that would probably be in the pantheon of Lifeson solos of, if we do our top 5 list, our top 10 list, we're looking at, certain other songs, but once again, it's perfect for the song. Right. And like I say, for the, 8 measures here, 16 measures at least at the end of the song where he's, high up on the neck going for some high notes alongside the lyrics, that kind of outro lead vibe where someone's singing out, and then the solo just kind of carries it along.
And the instrumentation during this solo, not the instrumentation, but sort of the rhythms and melody they're playing behind the solo changes. Right? It very much changes based on what was on the rest of the song, compared to the rest of the song. And that continues into the first little part of the chorus, which Geddy sings kind of over that same structure that they had before, right after Alex's solo.
Yeah. And he, for the sake of Geddy and Neil playing with any different rhythms, I mean, Lifeson's using a lot of sustained notes, some of the dips with the bar, let those notes ring out, a little bit of a lick, all right, let that note ring out. Yeah. So, more of a mood solo.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's very different compared to the Red Tide solo.
Oh yeah,
he takes his time with this one. When he holds that high D for like 5 seconds and it goes down to the C sharp, it's just like you don't need so many notes for a good guitar solo. It's not a stutter. It's just good melody.
Yeah,
it works over the bass line, works over the drums, and I just love listening to it. And the tone of his guitar is just so crisp. I believe.
Oh yeah.
I think he used the signature guitar for Presto. It's what he used on the first half of the tour. Before switching.
He was using the signature guitars, but he was still using some Strats. So it was a mix in the recording.
Right.
Yeah.
It's heavenly tone. Combined with the wall bass and the Ludwigs. I just love.
Oh, yeah.
I love that combination of instruments, you know?
I loved Neil's Ludwigs. Absolutely
Yeah.
loved his Ludwigs. Oh yeah. All right. Now we get to my favorite lyrics. All right. Take a walk outside myself in some exotic land. Greet a passing stranger. Feel the strength in his hand. Feel the world expand. I feel my spirit resist, but I open up my fist. Lay hand over hand over, then I go back to hand over fist. So to me, this is like, all right, some exotic land doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I'm in Morocco and walking through the market, right? You take a walk outside myself, like see yourself from a different perspective, and that winds up being the exotic land. But when you greet somebody, even if it's somebody you really don't know, just that human interaction, your world will expand if learning about, I've always felt this, like learning about different cultures and even different religions, different different customs that people have, not just around the world, but even like within a smaller area, like even within the United States, we have many different customs that we do depending on where you live, right? But learning about that will expand your world. It always will. And to me, that's what the song is about.
If you take
Perfectly
enough
said, Jim.
perception into account, yours will expand.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Yep. Yeah, I agree. That's one of the reasons why this is one of my favorites off this album.
There are a lot of
It's so hard to pick one favorite.
And I can't call it my favorite specifically, but the imagery that Alex has behind him, the rock, paper, scissors from the album.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
That was my first tattoo. I have a sleeve of Rush of Hugh Symes art from my right ankle. It was going to stop at the knee, but I ran out of room. My favorite era being from 84 to 2012. The first thing I got was a rock, paper, scissors wrap around my ankle, and then got the Presto hat and rabbit right above it and the dice for roll the bones. But the first one, ankle, painful place. But
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Rock, paper, scissors as a wrap around my ankle, because that was the first. Okay, I want to do a bunch of Rush tattoos, bunch of Hugh Symes art. What's the first one that comes to mind? Was that one. So cool. Thanks to Rich Coase to set a piece of art for that.
Nice.
Pieces.
What do you guys think of Geddy's vocals on this record? I think Geddy is at his vocal
Thank you, Rupert Hine, for drawing that out. Absolutely.
And then I think the next song has his best vocal performance.
Oh, yeah. I think his vocals on this album are just absolutely phenomenal. They're so good.
Rupert Hine.
They're amazing.
He finally found dynamic. Not that he didn't have any before, but this is up to this point. This is the most dynamic range we've seen out of Geddy's vocals. I can't remember the exact quote from Rupert Hine, but when interviewed about it, he said, "You're always up by the ceiling. Let's give you a place to go." And these two songs are great examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and they actually even got hurt a little bit in the mix. And I don't want to jump on that.
Yeah.
But point is,
I love that
they really are so expansive. Geddy's vocals in these songs specifically.
Yeah.
They're very expanded range.
And he never seems to be pushing it. This is like he clearly finally found his sort of natural range. So even like notes that you wouldn't consider like so high and piercing anymore.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Like just like to lay hand over hand over. It's got some vibrato there. It's beautiful.
Yes.
I hate when people say that Geddy's not a good singer, because he clearly is. He just had his own style, and but I think this album is definitely one of the best for just like raw, pure vocals. And if anyone says Geddy's like he sucks, he's a horrible singer, I'd probably look up to some songs on this album.
Yeah.
I don't think the piercing high voice from the 70s would do it, but I think this would. Or a song like Resist Acoustic.
Oh yeah. All right, then they go through some repeating stuff, right? Hand over hand doesn't seem so much. Hand over hand is the strength of a common touch. And then they repeat over previous lyrics and stuff like that, and fade out with Alex's guitar solo there. So any I mean, that's pretty much takes us to the end of the song. Any final thoughts on this tune here?
I kind of want to know what
That's
that
awesome.
fade out would have sounded like live. I always when
Mm.
any song that fades out
Man,
that never played live, I always wonder like what would he have done? How would they have ended it?
me too.
Like would they have ended on that like G chord that they play? Maybe Neil choke cymbal, that
Yeah,
great
they
kind of
just
thing.
come up with an ending.
I
Or
can
would
picture
they go-
some
or would they
beautiful
go
film
kinda-
work from Neil. Yeah.
Or they go kind of soft, like I don't know, but so
Yeah.
always be a mystery to me. Kind of
I
reminds
was
me
going to
of
say it's a
kind of like the You Bet Your Life ending, very similar. There's a guitar solo, beautiful guitar solo, and it just fades into oblivion, and you never know what it'll sound like live.
I was just going to say it's a shame that they never played this live. This is one song that I always wished, along with Available Light.
Oh, agree.
Yeah.
Geddy's
Yeah.
bass towards the end of this is spiraling's the wrong word. A better musician than I is going to come up with a better word for it. But just how much it's like, it reminds me a little bit musically of Open Secrets because there's so much work going on. And it's especially towards the end, it's that you're fading out on a lot of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
That's
was a
true.
very underplayed album. Like after the hiatus, they only played The Pass and then Presto. Like, it's good that they brought Presto.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
They
I didn't like
did,
I was
but-
not on the Presto roundtable because I was temporarily locked out of Instagram. But if I want to add 2 cents about that song, I love it, and I personally don't think they should have made it so heavy on Time Machine, but I'm still happy that they played it.
Yeah. And Steve, that's true. I agree. I would love to have heard this one live, and the only thing I want to say about the production of this album that I think, Paul, you touched on it earlier. For anybody who doesn't get into the songs because of the production of the album, try to find some live versions, because let me tell you, on the Presto tour, these songs were powerful.
They were.
Very,
And I
very
talked about
powerful.
Warpaint, Jim.
They all had a little more.
That is a live song.
Yeah, they were great. They were
Beyond
just so
me, why
good.
they only played that once. Like,
And to appreciate these songs,
I know.
I've actually listened to single instrument covers that I found on YouTube, and that's what gave me again, a refreshed respect for the range, the dynamics that these songs have.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, on the remixed album, I think the mix is so much better. I don't know if you guys have the remix.
But don't.
Like a remaster?
Yeah, on the
this one?
on the box set, the studio albums, which was all the albums from, oh geez, I forget now. I think all the albums from Presto to Snakes and Arrows. There's a remixed version of the album on there, and it's fantastic.
Really?
There it is. That's the one.
Is that the retrospective?
Okay.
That's it. So the version of Presto on there sounds much better than the original.
I will throw this in.
Yeah, look that up. Yeah.
Go.
Wow, that's a reason to buy that. Good to know. All right. All right, guys, I think we're kind of getting to our end. I could talk about these all day. Does anybody have anything final they want to mention on these two great?
The only thing I wish I would know was Neil thinking of Ultravox when he came up with some of the lyrics, because Ultravox had a song called Passing Strangers, and he was a fan of the band. And so references to Passing Strangers, there's also a reference in the lyrics of that song to Lost in a Crowd. And there is a reference in that verse too, Time Goes Too Soon, which, previous album. So I would love to know if Neil was kind of paying homage to Midjure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
I put money on that. Good call.
Yeah. Could be.
I'm here.
Could be. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Alex, Steve, Tal, and Paul, thank you very much. And you guys watching, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and let us know what you think of these songs in the comments. And let us know if you caught any of them. Well, not these two, really. But anyone's on the Presto album live on that tour. All right, until next time, we'll see you guys. Take it easy.